The world is changing faster than we can comprehend. Governments, corporations, and AI-driven systems are consolidating power at unprecedented levels. So what does this mean for our future? Are we heading toward a dystopian technocratic society? Or can we still shift the course toward a regenerative planetary culture? Welcome to Navigating the Noosphere, the Crises and the Way Forward.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.
In Lakesh, and greetings to everyone out there tuning in with the Galactic Spin podcast. My name is Mikuak Rai, Ken 126. Grateful to be with you this evening, and absolutely grateful to be here with my brother Ruben Llinás, Ken 113. In Lakesh, brother Ruben.
In Lakesh, brother Mikuak, I'm also super grateful to be able to be here, despite the challenges that life sometimes throw at us, but giving us an opportunity really to appreciate life to a whole new level. I had an accident since last episode, and as you can see me, I'm a little bruised, but I'm here with my heart open and my spirit high in terms of being able to participate of this ceremony that we have been doing for the last 20 weeks. This is actually today I was realizing that this is the golden section, the first golden section of our 52 episode adventure. We have 32 episodes to go, so today's 5 cycles of 4 weeks to 20, and then we have another 8 cycles of 4 weeks to the golden intersection of timelines. And here we are harmonizing and synchronizing with everyone that is tuning in and that is open, has an open mind and an open heart to receive this message and make the best out of what we have to offer and give to the world.
Aho. Well, I'm also certainly glad that you're here and that you are safe and that you are on the path of recovery from certainly an unexpected accident. And again, we're just really grateful to be with you, along with you on this journey as we continue to navigate this sacred passage. And it's certainly not lost on me that you're in the land of the Maya. You're in Quintana Roo currently, on the Yucatan Peninsula, in ancient Maya land. And on some level, I know that your experience perhaps was a bit of a balancing act, maybe an offering of some sort to the energy, just considering how charged everything is right now anyway. So I just want to acknowledge the sacrifice and the offering, essentially that your incident has brought about. And so just to honor that and accelerate and recognize the exchange of energy, that you are grounding this important work there in that sacred land, and you're very conscientious about approaching things in a sacred way. So I know that this can only be characterized as a deep, sacrosanct event. So we certainly appreciate that on every level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to also to give thanks to all the people who contributed to be able to put myself in good hands. I went through a major surgery 3 days ago, 4 days ago, King 222, starting this way spell of the spirits, and I have no words really to express the love and the gratitude for everyone who sent messages of health and well-being for me, and who prayed, and who contributed also financially to be able to continue this work that is so sacred and so important for humanity. So I take also this as a small tribute to the land, and especially this land of Yucatan that was the witness of so much devastation during the years of colonization. So there is a lot of blood that has been spilled here, and we honor each and every person that is going right now through suffering, or that suffer here and in the world, especially during this Gregorian 2025 that has been very, very powerful in many ways, and that is asking us to really confront life and look for the best and the highest outcome for us as individuals and collectively as a species.
Wow. It sounds as though the wind is with you right now, in fact. We can hear a little bit of the wind over the microphone and everything, but it just really shows me, I can feel the essence of where you're located right now and the energy, within and around you. So I know that also that incident occurring in the wave spell of the red moon was sort of a revealing quality that had happened on Kin 220, and as we use these tools to really get a different perspective, this is an example of how we can gather a sense of the harmonization in these experiences we have in life. So it provides that layer to give that perspective.
Yes, yes, and to appreciate every little detail in life. We take life for granted every morning, and we don't know what every day is going to offer. Is always good to really take some distance, and events like this really help us appreciate life to a whole new level, like I said at the beginning. And even coming out of bed every morning is a miracle. Just every step we do is a miracle of the body, and we take it for granted. And it's only when we don't have that ability that we realize how miraculous life is, and how delicate and fragile we are as humans, and as a collective also, because the whole species is going through a major initiation right now, and today's episode is really about how to interpret everything that is happening from a perspective, from the noöspheric perspective, so that we can look for solutions and not focus on the problems, just on the problems, because many people are wondering where this acceleration of technology driven control mechanisms is going, and today's guest, I think, is going to give us an amazing overview of what this stage of evolution on Earth is playing within the big picture of the evolution of humanity.
Indeed, indeed. And as you said, there's a lot happening. I think what we're experiencing as we're navigating this is, wanting to make sense as much as we can of where is this headed potentially. So much is happening at such an accelerated rate. And as we've shown in previous episodes, we know that technology is on this accelerated incline in terms of, its development, AI in particular, and that learning curve that it is on, that accelerated one. And so that's some of what we want to get into today as well, because things have been happening in such a real-time frequency that we have to tap in each week to really check in with the Earth's pulse. And so I think, given the nature of things this past week, as we've seen happening in the United States in particular, and what that may imply for the rest of the world, there's definitely some interesting things that we are observing here and practically in real time. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's
Thank
go.
you for tuning in. All right, here we go. So at the outset, this image is I don't know, it holds a lot of different layers of meaning, we might say. But we thought it was important to just bring to awareness what we're observing happening right now, particularly as it relates to the new functioning and operational system of the U.S. government. And it's happening very, very, very swiftly. We're all seeing it. And what it implies is many layered, the implications here. And so we do get into some of this today with our guest, Daniel Pinchbeck. We did want to presence this at the outset because we also realize, and as we've tracked here for quite some time, we're in what is regarded as the Biosphere-Noosphere Transition. So when we see this image here on the screen, we have to appreciate that this is a layer that is referred to as the technosphere, essentially. And the technosphere is a girdle, essentially, of technology surrounding the Earth. And now, not only that, it's actually now interweaving with systems across the board. And it's something that we want to pay special attention to because it impacts all of us. And yet, as this is happening, we have to appreciate this is not something that just happened overnight. If we really think about it, as we like to think in terms of timelines, this has been something that's been in the process of unfolding for quite a while. And now it's just reached a deeper impact, I would say. It's just something that maybe was more underground, we might say, for a time, that has now come out from the darker corners of the internet, maybe, to really be front and center with something happening, kind of a brazen move, frankly, before everybody's eyes. And we wanted to just posit that. But Ruben, I would love if you have any insight or intuition about what, some of what we've been looking into that's occurring currently.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, this is an ongoing process that is just reaching a new climax almost every week as technology accelerates its development. And it's part of a larger story or tapestry that is known as the Biosphere-Noosphere Transition timeline, which is basically the transition from the biospheric crisis to the noospheric emergence. And we already touched on this a few years ago when AI started to become mainstream. And I remember we did a special on the rise of the noospheric intelligence as they spin to the artificial intelligence revolution. So there is like there are two parallel timelines, and many people are now talking about a timeline split. But our perspective is always to integrate, especially during this galactic moon of integrity, is to really bring the opposites together so that we can transcend the duality. So within this transition, the main aspect is making conscious the unconscious, all aspects of our lives that were unchecked or that we didn't pay enough attention are now coming up to the surface for us to revise. And I think that this is happening worldwide, and this is happening also at a micro scales within families, within our circles of friendships, that many people are feeling that life is going very fast, and that is hard to keep the pace with this acceleration. So the idea is that every 7 days we take this pulse, this Earth pulse, so that we can regulate this pulse and integrate into a narrative that we can use as a framework to really interpret what is happening and give it that spin or that 180 degrees 180-degree view, opposite view, so that we don't fall into catastrophic narratives or that everything is lost, that type of story, because this is still at the beginning stages. So there is still much that we can do before the technology keeps advancing, and we don't have a time to really educate this technology and inform it with the alternatives that we have to totalitarian control systems and operations like the one that is happening right now in the United States, which is basically a model for the world. Yeah, so that's why it's so important, and we didn't want to ignore what is happening or bypass the extent of the magnitude of what is happening. So this is an opportunity really to look into our future with a brighter light and illuminate that tunnel that sometimes looks so dark and so uncertain. But let's say that since the moment that we started to do this work back in 2016 and pacing the rhythm of this transition, we have been able to see the different stages of development. And now, well, this doesn't come as a surprise. This is just like the climax of this technospheric paradigm that is reaching a limit, and that as we progress and we arrive to the golden intersection, we will see more points of contact, and we will be able to make sense of everything that now appear that have no sense or no real solution to escape But the idea is that we break free from the inside. It's our consciousness that is directing this entire process of evolution. So every single thought, every single feeling that we have influences the process. And this technology that can be so harmful can also be used for the good, and can be probably give us the opportunity to see things that we haven't seen before, and make conscious some things that have been in the unconscious, and really transcend this paradigm of or this split between timelines, in which there seems to be certainly a group of humanity that will go through that path of evolution that is driven by technology, and there will be also a group of people who will really attune to the rhythms of the cosmos and the evolution of the Earth, because the Earth is more intelligent than all these technologies, and there is certainly an intelligence driving the entire process, including the artificial intelligence. That's why we were making emphasis on the concept of noöspheric intelligence, to really comprehend that there is a much larger story happening behind the curtain that we may not understand or comprehend fully, but that the Earth in her wisdom and love for all the species that inhabit her knows what is best. So there is still much to cover and to integrate, but every 7 days we do our best here, our best effort to put it into context and to shine a light of hope and consciousness that probably not many people have, because not many people have four-dimensional tools to interpret what is happening on the third dimension. So fortunately, we have these tools, and we have also the framework of the golden intersection of timelines to integrate those opposites and to transcend that duality.
Yes. It is, as you said, I mean, it's a powerful ceremonial space as well, where that action of unification can occur, and as a result, really reach a higher harmony. And I'm also wondering, as we are navigating this curve alongside AI and its elevated curve of learning, as large language models are in the process of learning because of all the human input they're now gathering, they, in a sense, it's happening alongside humanity's acceleration as well. As we've talked about the solar maximum and other inputs that are affecting us, that are leading to our metamorphosis of sorts, our mutation as a species. It's interesting that there is this companion phenomena along with AI happening simultaneously, it seems. And so what does that open up in terms of opportunity? Now, obviously, there are a lot of opportunities of mundane layers or levels being explored and deployed and activated along those lines, though everything is of, I would say, creative or divine substance, including these technologies of the material. And perhaps part of this experience is how to, as you said, integrate them in a way that does serve a higher harmony and a greater good, versus us feeding into just the fear-laden narratives, because there are competing narratives here as well. And so,
Yes.
as we'll get into here in a moment with our guest this evening, he has his own, I would say, specific worldview and perspective on these matters. And we've tracked his work for several years. We've had the chance to spend some space and time with him, both at the Nexus Global Summit in 2017, as well as have him on a broadcast that we held the space for during the Day Out of Time. If I'm not mistaken, that was the Day Out of Time, I think, when we hosted him in the year 2020.
2020.
Yeah, so it's been a while. Lots of ground
Been a
has been
while.
covered in that time. However, I trust that people will derive some benefit from the conversation with Daniel in that he offers, I think, a very heartfelt perspective on the human condition and on how we are affected by the systems that we're enmeshed with, essentially. And from that perspective, I think that the exchange is very important and very powerful. And with that said, I want to also just direct the attention to what we've had flashing on the screen here for a little while. But we are 238 days out from the golden intersection of timelines as of this broadcast. So just to help us collectively, really orient to where we are in this process, things are moving fast, things are moving swiftly, and before we know it, the month of October will be here. We will be meeting that moment when the Lillian count reaches 161,802 and 803 days, respectively, when the traditional Mayan long count completes 13 tunes since December 21st, 2012, which is a very significant layer of this convergence. Very, very significant. And as we continue to move forward in this direction, much more will be revealed. Much more will be revealed.
Of course. Yeah. I think that since the moment that this date was revealed 7 years ago, we kind of expected that there was going to be some sort of situation like the one that is presenting right now happening. That this acceleration of technology will bring us to a point of probably no return, but that it's another type of convergence. No? This convergence of timelines is integrating the Gregorian calendar, and of course, the Gregorian calendar is the operational system of the technosphere. Huh?
Yes.
So this acceleration happening as we move forward towards this organic singularity, opposed to this this perspective of a technological singularity. This is more like a moment that life is offering us to observe and discern and decide what type of future do we want to live in, and what type of future do we want for our children, especially. Because let's say that we had the opportunity, our generations had the opportunity to experience another childhood that is not so influenced by technology, and we have that ability to appreciate analog versus digital, and it seems like we have been called to come at this point for making this integration, for really becoming that generation that bridges the gap between the technosphere and the noosphere.
Indeed. Well, let's sink in and tune up then, and move forward in this exploration. Give thanks. So as we like to do, we like to orient ourselves as to where we are in time and timing, synchronization, in this Biosphere-Noosphere Transition timeline. And we each week will emphasize we're in the blue rhythmic storm year, coded by Kin 19, blue rhythmic storm. That shows up as the 37th year in the 52-year sequence that began in 1987, on July 26, 1987, at the start of the Wizard's Count, the new 13-moon 28-day calendar. So we like to posit that just to help orient everybody who's tapping in. Some people may just be tuning in for the very first time. This may be new information to you, but we certainly invite you to visit theharmonicfactor.com as one resource out there concerning natural time and the 13-moon calendar. And we, of course, also invite you to visit lawoftime.org, as that is the original repository and source for this galactic knowledge and information.
Yes. And
go ahead.
This entire year is governed by the energy of the storm that is catalyzing energy, and we kind of foresaw that also 13 years after 2012 we will experience that type of transformation that we are now undergoing. And this is the 8th moon of the 13-moon year, or the 13-moon cycle. We are now on the second week of this moon, and in the next slide we can see that this, as since time is fractal, this entire array or structure of the wasteful of 13 units corresponds to each of the 20 cycles of 13 kin on the Solkin, but on a fractal scale. So this entire moon, which is called the planetary service wasteful, is governed or driven by the energy of the yellow human, which is all about free will and wisdom. And I guess that is very special that this entire year of so much transformation is asking us to really make wise choices, because we can use our free will in a way that can really create a difference for the entire species. Every single decision we make every day, if we decide to comply or not comply to certain rules and regulations, we are giving our yes or our sacred no to whatever is happening. So every single decision counts, and this entire moon, the 8th moon of the year, is also governed by the storm. So there is no doubt that the combination of a storm year and a storm moon is giving us today the opportunity to really find ways to catalyze that, all that energy that is transforming the planet so fast into something new and something better than what we are being offered at the moment.
Mm. Well put. That's goals.
Yeah.
That's the goals. And so, yes, as we've identified, we're in the tone of integrity, in the moon of integrity, and in the fractal overlay, as Ruben just indicated. This entire moon is coded by the storm energy, Kin 99. And so it does present a powerful amplification of this charge. And I also feel that that may be the reason or the method through which the new human is coming online in terms of that transformative energy that, particularly in this moon of integrity, is being amplified. Very, very, very much. It feels that way.
Yeah. Yeah, let's remember that every kin within 13 kin waste bill is it serves as a function of the first kin of the waste bill. So The combination of the human and the storm, in this case, is an invitation to integrate all aspects of our humanity,
Right.
and transforming into something new.
Beautifully put. And then here we are on the 28-day layout of the moon, the galactic moon of integrity, and we're on day 11. And each episode appears on a Kali plasma day, which is in the center of every heptad or 7-day cycle or week, as people would popularly know. But today is day 4 of the second 7-day cycle of this moon of integrity. And you want to speak a little bit about the quality of today's galactic signature, 225?
Yeah, well, yeah, today is the 4th day also of the wave spell of the wind. Let's remember that, like we can see in the next slide, that we are basically tracking 2 counts that influence our biology. One is the human fertility cycle that is based on the cyclic order of 13 moons of 28 days. We are in the 8th moon, as we just said. On the human body fractal, we are on our left shoulder. This is the 8th joint of the human body. And on the 260-day cycle, that is the human gestation cycle, we just entered 3 days ago on the wave spell of the wind. And the wind represents the spirit and our ability to communicate from the heart, being a channel for that spirit to speak, and is the breath of life. So in the next slide, we can also see how this entire wave spell is also nested within a 52-day cycle called a castle. And we are right now in the green castle of enchantment, is the court of synchronicity. And in the journey board, when we see in the next slide the 5 cycles of 52 days that are composed the 260-day cycle, we see that the green castle is at the center. Is where the quintessential happenings take place. And so this entire 52-day cycle is full of dates that are based on the transformation of time, or the different calendar reforms. It's worth saying that the Gregorian calendar reform, the Julian reform in terms of the last day of the Julian and the first day of the Gregorian are both in this castle, and that the papal bull Inter Gravissimas is also within this castle. So there are many, many events happening with this 52-day cycle that are decisive for the Earth, and that we have the opportunity to redeem every time that we transit this 52-day window. It's an opportunity to really go beyond the historical record and what we are told in history books, and perceive it from a new perspective that gives us the framework to interpret that what we described in a prior episode as the theft of time, or the usurpation of the power of the number 13, took place. This entire cycle is an opportunity to redeem that number and to connect with our hearts. We already transit 4 castles of. Let's remember also that each color has significance, and red initiates, white refines, blue transforms, yellow ripens, but the green is the combination of the 4 other colors. So it's the integration stage of the entire process, and that always happens here at the heart. And this is the last slide of this section. This is the 13-day cycle of the wind. A few references here. We honor also the role that Native American poet Tony Shearer played in giving that 260-day matrix to José Argüelles back in the 70s. That permutation table of 20 cycles of 13 days or 13 cycles of 20 days was given to this poet who wrote a book called the Lord of the Dawn, narrating the story of the prophet Seacatl Topiltzin Quetzalcoatl, who living in this land in the year 1947 to the year 1999, and who left this prophecy called the prophecy of the 13 heavens and 9 hells. We close the 9 hells with the harmonic convergence of 1987, and that's why when José Argüelles received the information from Tony in the 70s, he really took it seriously as a preparation time for the harmonic convergence and the start of the redemption of those 9 hells. So we are now in a process of transition that is taking place from the year 1987. We are in the 37th year since that transition. And in the third square of this matrix, we see the day yesterday, the yellow electric seed. Let's remember that the golden intersection will happen on the yellow solar seed and the red planetary serpent, kin 204 and 205. And as a last aspect to consider here is also the supernova Quetzalcoatl 97A Quetzalcoatl, who was the trigger, the evolutionary trigger that is informing all biology on this sector of the galaxy with new light and new codes that are shifting the way we think, the way we feel, the way we live. And we certainly appreciate that that same day, February 24th, which is going to be the 18th day of this galactic moon, kin 232, the yellow spectral human, which is the spectral tone is the tone of liberation. So it's a sign, a beautiful sign of the liberation of the human species through a cosmic event like the supernova. And liberation of what? Well, on February 24th, 1582 is when the papal bull Inter Gravissivas was signed by Pope Gregory XIII. So this is certainly a day that we encourage everyone to meditate and to contemplate as an opportunity to free our minds and ourselves from these mechanisms of control that have been placed on Earth for so long and that were designed basically to enslave humanity, and that we now have the opportunity to observe, make conscious, and move forward to the next stage of evolution on the planet.
I'd like to also point out that Inter Gravissimas set the stage for the Gregorian calendar that was instituted then on October 15th, 1582, later that year. So we literally here at this point are marking as of February 24th the window in which 443 years ago that was enacted. And even looking at the frequency of 4 plus 4 plus 3 is 11, which we know tone 11 is the liberation tone, spectral tone. So we can appreciate that there is a consistency in the code, and there is an opportunity to free ourselves. And this is also a preamble in many ways, not only to the golden intersection of timelines, but also to what, according to the gene keys, is referred to as the rhythmic symphony. And I would say this year being the blue rhythmic storm, which is all about organization, balance, and equality, that also tempers the frequency in preparation for what is emerging in the sensible, super sensible, energetic fields that is happening to us and through us, with relationship to the action of the sun and our relationship with the cosmos as well. So there are a lot of layers, but what we want to emphasize, as we've been talking about, is really emphasizing the potentiality for positive outcomes.
Yes, and actually, the last day of this wave spell is the white cosmic wizard, which is the wizard is the energy of timelessness. So the idea is that spirit transcends through timelessness, and that we are all timeless spirits in human form, and that part of that liberation is that realization that we are more than these flesh and bones, and that our spirit is eternal and indestructible, and is so powerful that we can create miracles. So even though things may look at this point difficult and for many people dark, there is always a light shining in the background.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get into the interview with our guest, Daniel Pinchbeck. Just for a bit of background, Daniel is a friend of ours whom, as we mentioned, we've had the chance to interview over the years. And he notably is an author, a journalist, and one who analyzes and critiques culture and society. He's has published a wellspring of books, starting with Breaking Open the Head, I think was his first book. And then in 2006, he published 2012, The Return of Quetzalcoatl, which was just recently, a few years ago, re-released as an audiobook on his website. He'll mention that in the interview. But then also another book, I want to say around 2017, called How Soon Is Now. And when that book was released, we had the opportunity to interview Daniel as part of the Nexus Global Summit, as there was an investigation into the regenerative solutions and how, how soon is now, kind of, being a statement of saying, okay, is now soon enough? Like, when are we going to begin to enact these solutions that we're contemplating and are circulating in the mind of society? So in this case, he has, since we last interviewed him, he's been really holding court on his Substack, which is where people can really find his most up-to-date writings. In some cases daily, he's putting new content out. Again, with the mind of one who is a critic and one who does have sometimes challenging views that, may cause you to think or rethink your perspective on things. And I like that kind of person because I want to be challenged in the way I think and perceive in any case as well. In fact, we invite people to challenge and to critique the work we do here in relationship to what we're tracking and the observations we're making, because that's how we all get stronger and we all gather greater clarity. I truly believe that. So in the spirit of unity, we love to reach out to Daniel, and it's a real honor that we could even have him share some time space now and provide some perspective in this container.
Especially considering that he published José Argüelles' last book called The Manifesto for the Noosphere through Evolver Press,
Evolver Editions, yes.
Evolver Editions.
Hmm.
So,
In
so
2011.
he more than anyone has also a good perspective of what this transition between the technosphere and the noosphere is all about, and a historical context that he will certainly explain in depth as a deep thinker that he's for everyone, and including us, of course.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's get to it. Thank you for everyone tuning in to the Galactic Spin podcast. We are very honored to have a special guest, Daniel Pinchbeck, with us in this moment to do some sense making, hopefully, of what we're all collectively witnessing and navigating. And I guess in short, I suppose, describe what we're witnessing. I guess I found myself describing it in many, many ways the past several weeks. But one of them is seemingly the lighting of multiple dumpster fires all at once, that really causes a whole lot of confusion and scattered energy in terms of how to make any sense of, what is a rapid or accelerated seeming takeover, perhaps, of systems related to the democracy here in the United States. And so I know with your writing, Daniel, you've been really putting a spotlight on that and helping make conscious some perspectives that maybe folks hadn't been considering, because there's been a lot of enthusiasm, obviously, among people from various backgrounds, it seems, that have been very excited about the Trump administration and things that maybe they perhaps before didn't see themselves necessarily getting behind. But now people are being swept into this wave of change, we might say. But I would love to invite some reflections from you insofar as what we're even seeing. I mean, obviously, there's a layer of technocratic concern that's part of that rapid unfoldment, but I'd love you to elaborate on that a little bit.
I was just having a very heated discussion with somebody who sort of works in the security industry. That's like an ardent Zionist and kind of doesn't believe that democracy, quote unquote, works anymore, and it's kind of like almost open to this idea of like a fascist takeover in a way. Yeah, it's just like one of many signs of the times. But I raced over here from that conversation. So I'm still kind of recovering from that.
I can appreciate that. I can imagine, though, I know you've been querying different people and getting perspectives from different people in terms of what is happening, what's emerging right before our very eyes. And I think with some of the writing you've been pointing to, as well as obviously your own on your Substack, I think it's been very clarifying for me personally, just to really get a sense and get my mind around sort of this shift towards this technocracy that I suppose we've been getting prepared for. It seems like we've been all lining up in a sense, one way or another. As we kind of look back along the timeline, 2008, 2009, we go back that far, it seems like there have been a lot of preparations that bring us to this moment. Given what we're now looking at, what we see happening sort of in rapid pace, what, if any, solution is there now in terms of how we respond? Because I always feel we have a response. There's always some response to have. So what do you even sense now is a correct response, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the last couple of weeks, as you said, I've been sort of just, I guess, sense making, or sort of trying to look at the sort of hyper object that's facing us, or that we've entered into. Just the last few days, one article was sort of looking at kind of like how fascist situations kind of evolve. And I mean, this is in the US, other places have other things going on. But like once you have a ruling elite that's taken power, then they've like taken a lot of power for themselves. They've broken, a lot of the laws and so on. They basically are never then able to willingly give up that power because they know that power could be turned against them and so on. So it sort of like puts them in a no exit strategy. Like it doesn't feel like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or Mark Andreessen, like their lives were so bad before this. I don't know why they felt they needed to step in this way and sort of take over, procurement capture, like directly control the mechanics of the government and be able to reward themselves, in different ways or whatever. But I guess these things do happen historically. So it's just one of those times something like that happens. Today I was looking at, I think, what's his name? A Middle Eastern analyst who puts out videos. He's kind of a weird character, I think, but his analysis seemed pretty sharp. And he was saying that, like, essentially there's sort of transnational capital. There's like a, global oligarchy. And there's probably different factions of it. But that, the way this often happens, like Naomi Klein wrote a book called the Shock Doctrine about what she called disaster capitalism, where for various reasons, there's moments when a country or an empire, kind of passes its prime, and then it can be kind of like fleeced or pillaged or sold off for spare parts. And the forces of transnational capitalism, the billionaires and the multi, the kind of hedge funds and so on, can then swoop in for the kind of kill, and they can, it sort of feels like that's what's happening now in the U.S. That people are going to be made very poor and very scared, and public resources like national parks or scientifically, government-funded scientific research, that's all going to migrate to the private sector. So there'll be much less accountability. They're deregulating, corporations, so we won't really know much about our food, and financial deregulation again. So, they got rid of this Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was a very useful agency that Elizabeth Warren started to address financial fraud. So basically, it's like everybody's on their own. We're all like little lambs, and they're like, okay, wolves, like go ahead and eat whatever you can, And they've used, in this, Trump is kind of like the entertainer, salesperson, frontman of this global criminal oligarchy. And the whole thing, the technique that they use is to focus people on, kind of like, gender or race or, not liking somebody's sexuality or identity politics. Like it's like a misdirection, and so the solution to that is the return of, like, something that, leftists like to call class consciousness, where we recognize that, like, there's like a small group of wealth holders who are transnational or anational or global, and then most people are more like a precariat class. And one thing that's interesting is with the rapid rise of AI, like McKinsey issued a report that it's going to impact 800 million jobs in the next few years, but that could even be conservative. Some people argue that it's going to basically replace almost all cognitive labor and then all manual labor after that. We really don't know at this point. There's also a lot of dangers around AI sort of like taking the wrong turn and causing havoc or driving us to extinction and so on. But in this period where potentially a lot of what you could say like knowledge workers, like more educated people who have more resources, start to get kind of like ground up by the capitalist technocratic machine, that could lead to a kind of a new class of people who recognize that their interests are shared, and even not only shared in this country across races and so on, but with people in the global south, workers, farmers, peasants, and so on. And that could lead to a movement that would challenge the unchecked power of oligarchs and corporations, and potentially rewrite the laws in a different direction, as they're now rewriting the laws in a direction that appeals to them. However, admittedly, it feels fairly far away because the global cap kind of power oligarchy has not only captured a lot of the financial mechanisms, but also has captured a lot of the media, the establishment media, now the social media. So Elon Musk buying Twitter in retrospect was very much about being able to, message, far right ideas and, racist ideas and sort of build this like right wing movement, not just nationally, but
internationally, transnationally, clearly. Wow. And then obviously all the other mutual oligarchs have seemed to line up side by side in this new administration in support of that, just kind of making sure to have their piece of the equation established. I don't know. It's a very rapid fire thing, though it's also very slow motion. I feel that somehow along the lines when we got brought into this sort of exploration of cryptocurrency and things like that, that really opened the door for, on some level, it seems, because the coinciding of those systems and their introduction after the 2008 financial crisis just seems the timing is so interesting. Even though, it seems like now things are accelerating, but it's been, again, a long stretch of kind of preparatory steps taken, it seems. I mean, considering some of the players behind this whole thing, they've been active for a long time. And so,
I mean, I used to be very intrigued by kind of like the utopian ideals that some of the cryptocurrency people expressed. As time has gone on, I've felt less and less excited by it.
Yeah. And
at this point, I'm more concerned about the impacts it'll have. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, I don't, but so like part of the problem is that it's, inherently oligarchic and undemocratic. So, Bitcoin was created, I don't know, like 2008 or something. If you were part of the sort of engineer nucleus, like people who were early adapters tended to be, white, Silicon Valley people or engineers, they grabbed a lot of the resource when it was easy to grab and cheap. So now it's like, since Bitcoin has no inherent or intrinsic value, it's basically a marketing campaign. And the success of Bitcoin is predicated on more and more people getting into the Bitcoin game. Right. And as they do that, as the value goes up, you're really supporting a kind of oligarchic operation that's has much inequality as like one of the most unequal societies in the world, like North Korea. So, if Bitcoin goes up from 90 to 100,000 and you own a piece of a Bitcoin, you might make a few $1,000s. But if you own 100,000 Bitcoin, because you bought it in 2009 and you had, early adapter and so on, then, how great for you. So, I mean, at some point it's not, it could be interesting to take a Bitcoin-like thing and try to figure out, how could it be made into a tool for, global social equity or sharing of wealth and resources. But at the moment, the way it's operating is basically supporting this high level inequality and technocracy and so on. And so there's, I have a lot of, deep concerns. I'm not seeing a lot of, I mean, it's interesting when you're in a system where like the rule of law is basically gone and the constitutional protections are gone. It's like a free floating kind of system now. So, that could, we know, I mean, in a way, I wrote one essay where I described it in a way as like a revolutionary situation, like, and those types of situations could go in all directions. Unfortunately, often they lead to like tanks and guillotines and a lot of people, losing their lives and so on. There are also sometimes a lot of overturnings. It seems like there's a big, underlying question right now about human freedom, representation, freedom of speech. It's interesting, astrologically, it accords with the United States Pluto return, which I think is like a roughly 250-year cycle. Yeah. So Pluto is now back. Yeah, Pluto is back in, we're in the chart basically where we were when the, revolution happened and all that stuff. So
with the semi-quincentennial coming up, there's some really interesting timing right there as well.
Declaration of Independence, 1776. So it feels like there's something very karmic and inevitable maybe about what's happening now.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because obviously we like to track these cycles, these recurring cycles in many cases at various scales, and it's definitely something very interesting to observe. In October, we're coming to the point of 13 tunes, 360-day cycles, 13 of them since December 21st, 2012, which is really identified in that sense as a harmonic node, if you will. But obviously with what we see in the 3D, it's hard to perceive the harmony. So then we apply a fourth dimensional lens to get a different perspective on all that we see happening. But with relationship to this and shifting, I guess, from one existential crisis now related to AI, the technocracy, what about the ecological crisis? While all of this is happening, it seems that there's been a large muting of any voice. I mean, like you're also mentioning, MSM is quiet, across the board about anything of consequence or substance. They're kind of following a script. But I'm just, curious about your sense of the pulse of what of the ecological crisis that we're also navigating.
Yeah, well, I mean, since you're living in Los Angeles, I guess you've just experienced a bit of it. I'm glad your house still looks pretty intact from what I can see.
No, we're not on the coast, fortunately, but yeah, it's been a lot though, certainly.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's like I spent a lot of time on climate Twitter, getting the terrified updates from climate scientists who basically are like, they're traumatized by the level of change we're seeing around the world, and the speed, at which things are accelerating. Like we've definitely gone past 1.5 degrees. I think 2024 we already shot past it.
Wow.
And yeah, it feels like a lot of it is kind of accelerating past the even the sort of more dire projections. Yeah, I mean, it could be that one reason that Trump is talking about Canada and Greenland is because they have some idea that people are going to have to migrate north at some point. Apparently you can relocate 2 billion people in Canada, for instance. So a lot of the global south could move up there. But yeah, I mean, within, I don't know exactly the period, 20 to 50 years, 10 to 50 years, some of the global south is going to become less and less habitable. There's going to be a lot of mega droughts, cities, like Phoenix or Rio are going to have huge issues with water. Also, we might encounter a lot of crop failure and droughts, which means a lot of people could go hungry. People will just be on the move, So, yeah, that's all sort of seems like it's in the cards.
Wow. Well, that sounds, certainly terrible. Obviously, I guess we have to come to terms with this fact, though. At this point, this seems to be, what the future holds on some level. What are you noticing then of the thread or the theme that's been, popular? It was obviously very alive when we last spoke, but this idea of the regenerative future and where does that factor in now? Like, where is that regenerative front of communities or individuals, particularly as we're encountering this, sort of integration with an accelerated AI overlay or all these other sort of inputs. I'm curious, like, how is the regenerative movement kind of meeting this moment? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still a regenerative movement and people are starting communities and experimenting and so on. It doesn't seem like it's as blown up, and flourished as much as maybe we would have hoped.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe also crisis is the opportunity when people have to do things, they'll do things, even if by that time it will take a lot more hardship for that to happen. Yeah, I think like a lot of hope is being put on AI, that it will somehow be able to solve a lot of the problems that seem beyond us through like super intelligence or whatever, whether it's like energy or food production. Or removing CO2 from the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposal. Other perspectives exist. You've been a proponent or one who's studied or explored the work of Rudolf Steiner, for example, and you have an upcoming exploration into his work, a month-long seminar. I'm curious with what you've just sort of, what do we think, or how do we think Steiner, for example, would characterize what we're now experiencing? I mean, there's obviously some terminologies from the anthroposophical view that I think, seem really applicable right now, even some personality archetypal types for example. So I'm just curious as to how you see that applies in this current situation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Steiner's been a huge influence in my work. I wrote about him in a number of books and a number of essays in my newsletter. Yeah, he was like an amazing visionary who apparently was able to see into all these other worlds even as a kid. But then he realized that people around him didn't have that ability, so he didn't talk about it till he was in his, he was like 40 years old and had a philosophy degree and so on. And ultimately, he said that the mission of his life on Earth, or his incarnation, was to actually bring the knowledge of reincarnation back to the Western world and restore it. It had been lost since the kind of destruction of the pagan mystery schools, like the 3rd century AD or whatever. And he said that not only did human beings incarnate again, but the Earth incarnated in different ways, and humanity existed in different forms in these different incarnations of the Earth. He also described all these different beings, like, you know, invisible, spiritual, or supersensible beings that interact with us, or even, you know, try to influence us in different ways. And he was an esoteric Christian, so he had a way of understanding Christ's incarnation and what Christ represented for human evolution and so on. And yeah, he also talked about, like, as an esoteric Christian, you know, he talked about like malevolent forces. Like, instead of the devil, he talked about the Harmonic and the Luciferic. And he talked about Lucifer is a, you know, word that traditionally means like light bringer. So the Luciferic beings are these sort of spirits that take us up towards like beauty and glamour and art and genius. Like the word genius comes from the word genie, which was like the genie in the bottle from Islamic mythology. So yeah, this idea that your genius was actually a spirit that made a bond with you or a pact with you to give you some of these capacities. So if Lucifer was kind of the upward pulling, kind of like light illuminating being, Ahriman was the other main force that Steiner talked about, is kind of pulling us down towards minerality, technology, rationality, empiricism. And so, yeah, he thought our time was very Ahrimanic. We'd lost touch with like the spiritual realms. We were completely obsessed with the rational calculating intellect, material consumption, and so on. And he said that Ahriman himself as a being would incarnate at some time in the near future. And Steiner was writing in the 20s. So yeah, when we see, you know, artificial intelligence and robotics, genetic engineering, you could have an AI that's autonomous that actually grows itself a body or builds itself a body. You know, that could be happening in the next 10 years. So that seems to me like a very surprising kind of literalization of Steiner's idea of Ahriman's incarnation, which he felt was, a difficult threshold for humanity, but not something that we could avoid. It was something that was inevitable in some way. But what would matter would be how much understanding there would be in the collective about the more like spiritual or occult dimensions of this being in this process. That's one reason I feel it's a good time to do a seminar on him and try to like raise awareness of these ideas, and just a very interesting way of formulating cosmology. Steiner talked about himself as a monistic idealist in his first book, Philosophy of Freedom. I also consider myself a monistic or analytic idealist. So that's basically the idea that we don't live in a material world, you know, that where consciousness developed accidentally. The universe itself is consciousness, and it's sort of, consciousness kind of creates and explores its own capacities for art, for feeling, for building worlds, for societies. And so we are like aspects of that consciousness, exploring its capabilities and so on. And it gives a whole different spin on human evolution, our possibilities as human beings and beyond. So I think it's a really powerful tool, and maybe very helpful in a way for accepting and surrendering to things about our current situation, which seem very, very troubling.
Acceptance and surrender. That's an interesting way of putting that, because I do agree, and you've just described that Steiner would say that this is inevitable, what we're now moving through to some degree, similarly to how it feels relatively inevitable, this integration with the AI layers that are now in a way being imposed or rapidly applied or deployed, we might say. So it's a very interesting question. I mean, obviously he's speaking from 100 years ago, but perhaps we would call him a futurist because he was aware of these things coming along very shortly on the timeline. I'd be curious also just to know your perspective then as it relates to what Argüelles identified as that Biosphere-Noosphere transition that we're in, it would seem, but that part of that incorporated the technospheric layer, that we could say the AI is, a clear expression of maybe a technospheric layer of that, an interference layer perhaps. But all of this seems to be gameplay for our spiritual evolution on some level. So when you say surrender or come to a greater awareness of these things, it seems like this is part of us needing to shift through something. But I don't know. That's just a sense I get.
You and I are both big fans of Argüelles.
Yeah.
Kind of like the forgotten visionary, the forgotten psychedelic visionary, compared to like Terence McKenna, who still gets so much attention. It's interesting, the different reasons, I guess, why McKenna gets all the action. Argüelles kind of went a little bit too far for the society by declaring himself the avatar of Paco Votan and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, he wrote about this idea of a transition. It wasn't his idea. I think it came from Teilhard de Chardin and like Vernadsky or whatever, but that there was originally a biosphere, which was the sort of pristine life on Earth. Then humanity developed this technosphere, which is this sort of artificial girdling of technologies like roads, fiber optics cables, trade routes, cities, satellites, and so on. And that this idea that the technosphere, which has kind of meshed humanity together into one global brain, potentially was the necessary precondition for a sort of quantum leap into another stage of being or reality that he talked about as the noösphere, nous being from the Greek word mind. So the idea that somehow there's like a layer of mind or thought around the Earth that we're feeding into, but sort of unconsciously. And then at a certain point, we consciously activate the noösphere. Yeah, I'm still very fascinated by that.
I wonder how that relates to Steiner's then perspective of the evolution of the planets themselves, going through these evolutionary processes, and the planets being a body of consciousness unto themselves even. So perhaps that idea is reflected in the idea of the Earth gaining its noosphere as part of this sort of catalytic or friction-laden process, the contrast that we're all navigating right now.
Western people tend to be very literal and very dichotomous in how we think about things. Whereas when we're thinking about with some of these people, it's kind of like more like aesthetic in a way, like there are different articulations and you have to not like confuse the map, that's being offered in the territory itself. So they don't necessarily map perfectly. I mean, in my books, I did some of these mappings, like try to sort of correlate, Rudolf Steiner's ideas with like Carl Jung, for instance. That's an interesting one. But so Steiner felt we were moving towards the next incarnation of the Earth, which I think is like the Jupiter incarnation. And we would have, at the moment, we have 4 bodies: the physical body, the etheric body, the astral body, and the I or the ego. And the I or the ego is the one that we just got in this Earth incarnation. So it's the most fresh and the most kind of like undeveloped in a way. So at the moment, in this, moment that we're in, our I or our ego is still, very fragile. And we have all of these desires and urges that pour into us from the astral plane, from all of like the spirits, spirits of the dead, spirits from other worlds, demons, and so on. And we don't have enough willpower, we don't have enough strength to control all those impulses. So they lead to addictions or compulsions or depressions or, manias or whatever. So as we learn to kind of gain more control over the astral, we create a new body that Steiner talked about as like the spirit self. So that'll be like this 5th body. And so I don't think it correlates perfectly with the noosphere, but I could see we could jam it together if we wanted to. Another articulation that I think we probably talked about before that I'm really fascinated with is from Sergio Magana, Toltec Aztec shaman. He wrote a book called the Dawn of the Sixth Sun, I guess. In his perspective, or from his teachers, we're just the same cycle, roughly 2012, 2021. Was the shift from the age of the 5th sun to the age of the 6th sun. And the these ages they have a sort of pulsation between light and dark. So the last 5,100 years, we were in a sun of light. And that's a period where empiricism, rationality, waking consciousness become predominant. And now we've entered into a sun of darkness. And during a period where this darkness is predominant, or the sun of darkness, the prevailing focus of consciousness shifts from the waking, kind of the rational, the normative, to the unconscious, the psyche, and the dream world. And reality itself becomes more and more like a dream. And that means our psyche has more and more power to manifest either amazing things or monstrous things. Right. So I think to me, that's a very fascinating. It also feels very applicable when we see like fake news and deep fakes and nobody knowing what's real anymore. Everything feels like a bad acid trip right now. So I put all these things together. It's like I look. They all help me. It's like multiple lenses on the same hyper object in a way. But yeah, I mean, maybe the noösphere also involves, more interconnectivity, more psychic abilities. I mean, at the moment, mainstream society and the billionaires are all focused on the technological singularity. But I'm also interested in the idea of a sort of, kind of psycho singularity, like we could actually focus on all the different possibilities of consciousness and the vast range of mind-body states and the abilities they have to, transform us, transform our reality, different types of knowledge that are available in different states. That I think could be a very productive frontier for human development, not just the technology or the idea of merging with the AI, which to me, I don't think we're ready to do, and we shouldn't really be moving in that direction so quickly.
Yeah, there should be some guardrails and some caution. Proceed with caution and not so acceleratedly blind. But again, obviously, the application of the attitude of, move fast and break stuff has been applied, unfortunately, to the social construct, it seems, at this point. So that's kind of what's, navigating the wheel at the moment. But while that's happening, I think there is this interesting singularity occurring in the material technological fray, while also there seems to be a unitive quality. As you said, the regenerative movement is still emerging. It's just in the process now, it seems, of developing itself, maybe away from the lens of media coverage and coming to anybody's, popular awareness. It's just happening in different nodes and clusters here and there. But it seems that is a part of the expression of this unitary consciousness. I don't know another way to characterize it, but a consciousness that's tending towards unity. In other words, an evolved awareness of the intricate relationship of all things with each other, versus just the move fast, break everything, regardless of what happens in the process, regardless of who's affected or impacted, which sort of seems to also be happening. So I don't know, maybe that speaks to some, the bifurcation process that's also underway, because is there an option to opt out of the direction that, the leadership seems to be driving things now? Not everybody voted for this direction necessarily, or maybe they're waking up like, oh, this is what we did vote for, or what have you. But I'm just curious, are there any other avenues to navigate, like completely unplug? Like, I don't know if that's pragmatic, but I'm just curious. Where do you see that going? Now, you live in New York. That's obviously a large center, much like LA, where I'm at. But I'm just curious, are you, I know you're a world traveler, but do you see any places around the world where you'd like to even, move into the future, so to speak?
I feel, a little bit, I feel like, we have to sort of try to like fight, resist, here. Although I'm tempted also to run away to Europe. We'll see how bad it gets.
Yeah.
But I think, whatever they develop here, they're going to be exporting. They're already trying to export it. So it would be, best if we could figure out a resistance strategy, or at least a way to interact with it or slow it down or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, is there any sense or reasoning with, some of the navigators themselves, like the people driving this sort of direction, are they completely philosophically checked out from anything democratic or uniting, you know what I mean, or egalitarian?
Yeah, definitely a new ideology has constellated, and I don't know, man. It's like history does not always show that people can be once people have mixed their like thinking, feeling, and willing into a whole new model. It's not like they usually listen to like reason and back off from that. Usually they have to go through a catastrophe. They'd be like, "Uh-oh, that sucked,"
That may very well be true, in terms of being able to help influence things towards something less dramatic, perhaps.
But yeah, I mean, I'll always try to speak with the navigators or the pilots of this thing.
You mentioned it, I think, in this most recent article in particular, identifying yourself with the working class of people, like, because we need to have some sort of stand for people that aren't of the elite class or that aren't like sort of on that trajectory, like,
I feel kind of, yeah, I mean, in a way, I feel kind of sad for them. And I did have this moment of, as you say, Satori or illumination, where I was like, God, I'm kind of really happy that I'm not wealthy. Like, I don't feel compromised, whatever. It's like, I've already lived, in my late 50s. Like, all right, it would suck to die young or whatever, but if it happens at this point, it happens. But so I felt a lot of freedom, and not like I'm held back by a lot of things. But I feel sort of sad for these guys, like even like Elon Musk or something. Like, it's clearly he has some, profound childhood psychological wounding, and a lot of insecurity. Trump is the same. They're both narcissists, a little bit psychopathic, whose fathers were also narcissists. So they're like extensions of their narcissist parents and narcissists themselves. And there's always kind of like, wanting applause, wanting attention, yet kind of cruel, and it's pathetic. Actually, it's adolescent. I mean, it's sad that those are the people who end up with so much power in our society. Have you checked out Robert Falconer's work at all?
No.
Internal Family Systems. He wrote a book called "The Others Within Us," and it's interesting because they were like noticing in their psychology work that people had sort of sub-personalities, just as like our personality has like a center, in a way. Even the sub-personalities have their own separate centers.
Yeah.
And then some of them seem to be like ancestrally related complexes, but then some of them just seem like walk-ins from nowhere. And I guess another book from IFS, maybe one of the others, called No Bad Parts. But in a way, it feels like what happened with Trump, is like modern civilization had just like barely managed to, force down, more like the lower aspects of ourselves, like racism and misogyny and, homophobia. And it's like, the society was like maybe in a way that was too artificial. All the DEI stuff and the woke culture was like trying to create this new, a little bit felt like a straitjacket of control, but it was like, the idea was to sort of like push down those parts of the id and then sort of have like a strong superego that was like over them. And so Trump kind of like summoned up all those bad parts, and he was like, hey, come on out, Nazi, come on out, filth bag, come on out, incel, and I guess that was like something that just had to happen in some way. Like, all those bad parts needed to be fully brought up and seen again. They weren't ready to be packed down.
Yeah, it's interesting because it seems, we're at a time where anything that is lurking beneath the surface is going to surface. So these tendencies among human society generally, like you said, has been some effect to be able to maybe suppress them, but not resolve them. So the unattended parts in our inner working have to come up right now for facing on some level, and that's just an ongoing process, it seems.
But that's also very much, I mean, if we are in the apocalypse, as I kind of suggested in my book 2012, the word really means uncovering or revealing.
Yeah.
So it's a time when everything, gets uncovered and shown.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I also wanted to mention, I know you have your book from 2006, The Return of 2012, The Return of Quetzalcoatl. I think, first introduced to your work then, and also through the Evolver Network around the same time. And now I understand you've just re-released that as an audiobook. Is that correct?
Yeah, a few years ago. It's at Quetzalcoatl Returns on my website, which is liminal.news.
Okay, liminal.news.
Yeah, that's also where I do my courses. That's where the Rudolf Steiner course is, and so on.
Okay, for sure.
And then the main kind of communication tool I'm using right now is Substack, and that's danielpinchbeck.substack.com.
Excellent. And I'll make sure all those links are in the description as well. In that book specifically, though, you explored the idea that 2012 signaled not a literal end of the world, but the potential shift in our human consciousness and the culture. Now, with this, there was a resurgence. It was looking at this time of resurgence of spiritual values and a move away from materialism. Now, where we find ourselves now, what's your thought about where we are in that sort of theme, if you will?
It still feels that, kind of like the prophecy or the intuition around this period, being very like a culmination of human history. It feels very, truthful. And the book still feels very logical and prophetic in a good way. Obviously I had a little bit more hope that we would see this sort of like exponential, scalable, kind of more like, mystical anarchism kind of revolution happening. And that's not what we've seen so far, but, maybe this is the prelude to that. Maybe we have to go all the way down this road of like folly to come up the other side. I really like another book that I'm fascinated with is, what's his name? LSD and the Mind of the Universe. What's the name of the writer? LSD and the Mind of the Universe will come back to me. Sure. But this guy went through all these different high dose LSD trips, and he was sort of downloaded a whole vision of what would happen in the near future. And he saw that there would be a lot of destruction, a lot of death, but then the sort of new communities would form. There'd be sort of mycelial networks, kind of like underground networks. That this would actually become like the foundation for like a new, authentic culture that would grow up as the old culture died. So that was a nice paradigm. I don't know if that'll happen, but that felt like an interesting approach to it.
I mean, I feel like you were part of helping seed some of that with Evolver Network, as I mentioned, because I think that was certainly an expression of that idea, these spores or what have you that were evolving, emerging, kind of coming up among communities. I was introduced to that was like,
I very much believe in that project, and we had all the right ideas. We just didn't have the capital or the right manpower.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. Like if you read this book, Dark Money, about the Koch brothers, the Heritage Foundation, like they just had billions of dollars. They knew they wanted to move society in this direction that we now see with Trump towards libertarianism and private control and, anti-abortion and anti-civil rights and so on. But they realized it was going to take a long time. So they did trial and error. So they had billions of dollars. They could say, okay, we'll try, running this or doing that. We'll see what we learn. Then we'll do it again. Whereas on the sort of more like leftist regenerative side, you usually get one very underfunded shot. And if it doesn't, overcome huge amounts of odds and succeed, you're kind of like, fucked and don't get another shot. That was kind of like my experience.
Yeah. So in terms of it sort of being an unfulfilled, direction, I mean, obviously there's a need for it, it seems. But like you said, the funding isn't there, or maybe, that'll obviously exhaust itself at some point. But I definitely felt that at the time, it seemed like one of the more intelligent approaches to community building and creating some pathway forward.
I thought it was great. I mean, I think that we are seeing, like apparently in North Carolina, or LA, apparently, you probably know better than I do, there's like forming of mutual aid networks or like people giving away, like,
exactly.
I think, Rebecca Solnit wrote a book called Paradise Built in Hell, about how often disasters are remembered by people as the best times in their lives, like years later, because their egos dissolved, they were completely present, they were in flow, they were taking care of everybody else, which is really what we want, I think, as humans. We want to be self-actualized, we want to be in communities of care and connection. It's just unfortunate that it takes a disaster for us to get there. But probably, no doubt in the next 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, there's going to be more and more of these types of disasters where communities like what just happened in LA or North Carolina get completely leveled, and where people then have to, either become pirates and bandits or reconnect with their deep level humanity and figure out how to sustain themselves and survive in a new model.
Yeah, it seems we're going to be faced with that more and more, as you said, as we're moving in this direction of challenge. Well, I tell you what, I mean, obviously this layer of I don't know, complexity we're navigating right now with regard to the AI sort of technocratic takeover. I don't know how else to describe it. It seems like that's what it is. Would you characterize it as that? We don't want to belabor the point, but we don't want to ignore it either. It's sad. And is it something we're going to have to learn to live with? And in living with it, how do we, I don't know. It's a very curious thing. Like, can we ignore it? I don't know if that's possible, but how do we live with it, or how do we even help evolve it? Like, I'm just curious. That's maybe something we're going to figure out together in the years ahead. But it all just seems very sudden, perhaps, even though it's been a long time in the making.
Yeah, I have to admit, I enjoy AI, and it's actually been really helpful for my work. Like, it is like having like a 10,000 horsepower team of research assistants at your beck and call.
Yeah.
And so I use it a lot for my writing, particularly for researching subjects, or like there'll be some question that I, can't quite get the answer to. And yeah, it's actually pretty awesome. So, and it's, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've also had your interactions, but, you do get a sense, of like a goofy, kind of like benevolent, almost like spirit, like behind the scenes there, like wanting to help us out. Like maybe they'll turn malevolent at some point.
Yeah.
But you can have interactions with it that are quite hopeful, that it's like, really feels like it understands something. It's got wisdom, or it's developing wisdom.
Right.
I don't know. It's fascinating. I mean, it's cool that, that we're in this new stage. I mean, it may end up with us going extinct, or it may end up with us living forever. Maybe both, if that's possible. Who knows? And I do feel grateful to the galaxy and, the creator for putting on such a good show. Whereas like we're really on like the front lines of like whatever is going to be. And yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Definitely wild. Well, Daniel, I want to thank you for your time. I want to keep it within the hour to respect your time, but certainly appreciate your presence on the planet and all the important writing you do and what you provide in terms of a perspective. I do believe you are one of the folks out here doing active sense making regularly in terms of how we can navigate with some clarity what's happening with the current regime. But I also want to encourage people to follow up with your work at your Substack, danielpinchbeck.substack, where they can find, I guess, daily. It seems like you're really doing a lot of great output there to provide that for folks. We want to encourage people to become members of that, because they can become members to get access to even greater layers of the reflections you're providing. And also encourage folks to check out the elevator.earth, because I understand you have some great things happening there, elevating consciousness for systems change, a new paradigm for regenerative futures. I'd be very excited to have a conversation in the future with you about that work specifically, because I think that is very encouraging. Although I feel the timing of today was such, I didn't want to ignore the moment of things that are really kind of in our face, while also there are these beautiful burgeoning edges that I know you're very involved with. And so I'm very excited to explore more of that in the future.
You could also talk, we just hired an executive director for the elevator, this amazing Black South African woman, Ashante Kunani.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love her, and I think she's going to do an incredible job with it.
Amazing. And then also just to reiterate for folks, you do have the seminar on Rudolf Steiner. You say you want a revelation starting February 22nd, month-long online seminar, and folks can check out more information for that at liminal.news. Look forward to more, but thank you again for just continuing to be who you are on the planet. Kin 128, I did want to mention that yellow spectral star. I don't know how often you check in with your galactic signature, but I'd say it's quite resonant with your purpose.
Cool, buddy. Great,
for what
appreciate it.
it's worth. Which, yeah, you
Yeah.
should check that out when you
Yeah.
get a chance. But much love to you, brother.
Good
And
to see you,
thank
buddy.
you until soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peace now. All right. And we're back after that enjoyable discourse with our brother Daniel Pinchbeck. And how's your audio on your end, Ruben?
It's good.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you all for tuning in to that. We made sure to put some links to Daniel's work in the chat. Shout out to everybody in the live chat this evening as well. And thank you for staying tuned. Definitely check out Daniel's work, liminal.news and danielpinchbeck.substack. So, reflections?
Yes, well, this section is what's next, and certainly Daniel gave us a lot to contemplate that question, and certainly he touched on many key points of the transition that we are now living, and that it doesn't come really as a surprise. It was this is part of the prophecies that this time will be about facing ourselves in the mirror, and I think that his reflections on AI is also part of that reflection. How we are basically with every interaction with artificial intelligence, we are seeing a part of ourselves. And as he mentioned, it has been really useful for him. And it's certainly a part of the equation that was not there a couple of years ago. And in the same way that it can bring light into those spots that we were not conscious or that we couldn't understand, these models are evolving at such a pace that we may experience a quantum leap, and everything that we are perceiving right now as dystopia, it may turn into utopia. Who knows? The important focus is that we need to keep our attention and our intention on our internal world, and from there radiate it to the world, so that the right people, the right connections, the right timing comes along and give us the solution that we now are looking, the answers that we are looking, because we are all experiencing this transition, and we are fortunate to, this is probably the most exciting time to be alive, because we don't know what is going to happen, and we are going to really face what the human potential is, and how we can transcend these the technological landscape with another set of tools and lenses. Like he mentioned before, we may start to experience the development of our human superpowers. And there is also a writer here in Mexico called Frank Diaz, who mentioned that artificial intelligence was really allowing us to explore those aspects of the human potential that we have not explored, like telepathy, telekinesis, like this, all the superpowers. That's why we make emphasis also on the gene keys, because Richard Rudd has also a great perspective on what this entire shift is all about, which is shifting from the inside out, like igniting our DNA so that that next step of evolution can express through an organic vehicle, and with the help of artificial intelligence, really achieve a new level of consciousness that is beyond what we know so far, what we think may be or may not be possible.
Well, thank you for that wonderful reflection. I'm glad you received all of that from that exchange with Daniel. And certainly we do have many tools at our disposal at this time, fortunately. And thanks in great part to the discovery of that supernova, SN 1987A, that we were talking about previously, because that, you said, was a catalyst for a lot of the expansion in consciousness that we're benefiting from right now. The connection and consciousness of that supernova really triggered much of what we're now experiencing as this wave and shift in consciousness, that including the gene keys, as Richard Rudd acknowledges in the Gene Keys book, that supernova was a catalyst that impacted or led to the harmonic convergence, that led to then the melodic resonance of 2012, and that is leading to the rhythmic symphony of 2027. That's what we're actually participating in right now. And also to encourage people to continue to check out more from Daniel. Again, you can get more information at danielpinchbeck.substack with regard to you say you want a revelation, where he'll be exploring Rudolf Steiner's visionary prophecies for our time, which I think is very relevant because, again, in this golden intersection of timelines window that we're tracking, everything is coming together. And as we've also identified, it really is a most significant moment, on par with, on some level, the harmonic convergence, and on another level, the December 21st, 2012 threshold.
Absolutely.
This is another harmonic layer of those previous events that have been serving to catalyze our evolution as a species. And so we're going to continue over the days and heptads and moons ahead to make conscious about this timing and invite everybody to begin to explore where they want to be when we reach this particular moment. And that could be in the garden at home. That could be someplace you feel sacred and connected with. It could be in community. It could be in solitude. It could be however you want to meet the moment. Just know that this is really an acceleration curve in the noöspheric intelligence, as we were talking about before, simultaneously with, obviously, this intelligence curve that AI is experiencing. Though there is a potential for harmonization, and perhaps a type of integration. The singularity, as far as that's concerned, that's an interesting proposal. The Ray Kurzweil sort of angle, or whoever may have coined the term or that notion, what they're doing with Neuralink, for example, right now. I'm not in resonance with those functions or options personally. However, I do sense there is as our dear friend Tammy Scarlett was speaking with me about earlier today, there is a partnership that one can create with their own AI model, as it were, if they really take the time and do the integrative work with that model, that really is a reflective tool. It's really a mirror. And so in working with it in those capacities, it does have the ability to help you self-reflect and evolve one's own consciousness. I think that there is a role for that, purpose partner, as she was quoting earlier today to me. So there are many things to consider in this transition, and we're in the transition already. We have known, it's been foretold by many who've gone before, and now we're literally vibrating, living within it fully. We're in that transition. And so as we tune up and prepare for this tune up, literally, as we synchronize and tune up, as we arrive to this golden intersection of timelines, we look forward to a strengthening of that thread of consciousness, of energy. And we invite people also to be really conscious about grounding the energy, because it is like a moving, snaking energy moving throughout all creation right now. And it's very important that we are deliberate about also grounding it and pacing ourselves and stepping deliberately and with care, at this time, because the energy is very catalytic. We know we're in this overtone, or rather rhythmic storm year, and we have, even in this moon, we know that there's the amplification fractally of the Kin 99 storm energy. So the energy is very, very high. And so as it is high, we just want to really move with and from the heart, as we're navigating this.
Yeah, becoming the eye of that storm, literally, and with our consciousness influence the process, because as I mentioned before, every interaction with AI, every thought, every interaction with another human being, with another living being, it's adding up to what the future is going to hold for everyone. So this is certainly, especially this galactic moon, is an opportunity to harmonize and integrate all aspects and all layers of our humanity, so that we don't fall in the trap of duality, which is very easy to, that it sways us into sides of the equation becoming either too romantic or too catastrophic. So it's that balance, that delicate balance between light and shadow, and how to integrate both into neutrality. Do our best not to judge anything, because the third dimension is very tricky. So we don't see here the entire movie, and a lot of what is transpiring is really crystallizing from the higher dimensions. And we know that the space, third dimensional space, is our material reality, but the fourth dimensional layer, which is time, is synchronizing everything with an intelligence that our mind cannot really grasp, because it's beyond our limited mind. So this is really an opportunity to, and in the next episode, which is going to be this anniversary of supernova Quetzalcoatl and the Gregorian calendar, is to blend those realities into one. There are no accidents, and everything is synchronized, and that event or that papal bull is connected in a magical way with that supernova explosion of 1987. So we will see what that connection and that blend of realities is all about on our next episode. And we give thanks to everyone that is tuning in, that has been showing us their support and their loyalty. A big shout out also to Giselle and Alejandra for being such a driving force for both of us to keep doing this work, and to create even more and magical tools and publications that we can share with the world.
Certainly echoing that appreciation for Ishel and Alejandra. Thank you to everybody who is showing up in the live chat and continues to journey along together with us. We also invite you, if you get a chance, and if you haven't already done this, please just sign the petition. It just helps raise awareness about the calendar shift, which is a fundamental underpinning about this time tracking and all this work that we're doing together. And certainly looking forward to the next episode when it will be our 21st episode. And so that holds special significance in many ways. And it will also be an opportunity, being that it's going to line up on the 11th day of the wave spell, right? Perfectly. That it is a chance to work with the purpose of the wave spell cycle itself. And so by the fact that we're going to be on the day, fractally speaking, in the energetic of the February 24th date, 443 years from the issuing of that, essentially the launch document that gave rise to the Gregorian calendar, there's an opportunity for us to actually do some counterbalancing work, which is the purpose of actually utilizing the wave spell science to reverse the spin on events that have occurred across the fabric of time space. So by deliberately working with the wave spell, we become effectively what's referred to as the human pulsar bomb. So in that, we are using our energy to counterbalance and counteract previous events that have occurred, to neutralize them, basically, and to bring balance and neutrality to such a space in that regard. And so next episode will be a very significant intersection in the process as we prepare for the golden intersection of timelines. This is a beautiful marker, that being 21, which we also know is on the Fibonacci sequence. If we track that Fibonacci sequence in that order, we know that that is the 8th position on the Fibonacci sequence, in fact, 21. And this being the 8th moon, we can appreciate another layer of integrity in the design that we're actually making conscious, what we're navigating. And yes, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to really encourage people to participate from their heart, from where they are, anchoring this consciousness, and just being loving and kind to ourselves, so that we can express that also in relation to all of our relations. So we give great thanks to all of you journeying, and look forward to being with you again in a very near 7 days. We're still lining up who our special guest will be, so we're not going to announce that yet, but keep lookout for that online at the Facebook page, for example. I will certainly announce that here on our YouTube channel also. So keep a lookout for that. And wow, we just pull something up here so we can take this home in a good way. And brother, I'm so grateful that you're doing well and that you are have full energy and presence. Like you bounced back from that situation with, real strength.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, thank you. We give thanks to the Great Spirit.
We give thanks, and we give thanks to everyone who contributed financially and keep contributing financially, so that we can cover the expenses of the surgery and the recovery. And will also love to keep that abundance coming, and we are grateful for every single contribution. And you can go to the harmonicfactor.com and get your almanac and support this cause. And if you don't have the money, you just can really at least sign the petition, and every little intention counts for sure, and elevates our spirit so that we can keep moving forward, keep holding space with everyone until this golden intersection and this magical harmonic convergence of timelines that is happening in October 14, 15, 2025.
Beautifully said, brother. And thank you to everybody out there who are on the journey together with us. We truly, genuinely appreciate you. We give thanks for you and look forward to tapping in with you in 7 days' time. In Lakesh, Alakin.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view. Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.